Welcome to the White Knuckling It podcast with Justin Burke.
No, we got out of the life with the pre-roll.
And Mitchell O'Brien.
In his butt.
They share their experiences from white knuckling sobriety to becoming successful and living life in recovery.
Yeah, boy.
Welcome back to the White Knuckling It podcast. I'm Justin Burke.
And I'm Mitchell O'Brien. You know what I wanted to say is I'm glad you let me do an interlude. That gets me pumped coming into this.
Really?
It really does. It's like it starts to build it up. Like we got this good intro, and then it hits that high point. It just like drops you down into the podcast. Makes me feel good.
Yeah, that is kind of nice. Our whole intro is really nice.
Yeah, and it was a joint effort.
Yeah.
We put some things together, got a little constructive criticism, and you had some thoughts, and I mixed it, and I enjoy it. It's good.
Yeah. Not saying it's the best out there, but
No,
I
it's
mean, for
not the
amateurs,
best. Yeah.
we're doing pretty well.
Amateurs. We're like 1.5% amateur between the two of us.
You think so?
Or like if we were 200% together, we're like 150% amateur. You have podcasting experience past, but before this, just as a guest.
Yeah, but none of the engineering stuff.
Right. And now you're learning that. And I've got some history of because you can go to the one that I started and go right to Mitchell Podcasting 101.
Yeah.
Where all I had done was a very small amount of guest voice work on a podcast.
Right.
But we wanted to say happy 4th of July.
Yeah, happy 4th.
Does she have a... Yeah, America! Woo! Yeah, America. Fuck yeah. You wanted to talk about, you brought up something really good that I think we should talk about, and it's, how did you word it? How not to use during holiday celebrations?
Yep.
Is that how you said it?
With accountability.
With accountability. Or I think just in general.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about how accountability is a big part of that.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you first.
What's that?
I'm not talking about any kind of personal experiences. We heard a story recently. How do you feel about step siblings getting married?
Well, keyword there, they're not related. So I mean, really, it's like one of those taboo things. Like it's kind of frowned upon, but in reality, they're not blood related. They're not even family.
You don't think the supernatural sanctity of their parents' marriage pulls them together, and that's why it's so it's taboo? I'm going to throw out there
a little bit.
My hot take is that it's not taboo because of no blood relation. People just get weird because of the part, like they put it too close to actual brothers and sisters instead of step brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my thing is where it's kind of taboo because like mom and dad are legally married and like you become one family. So it kind of becomes taboo, like it's where I say it's frowned upon. But in some areas, it's definitely not frowned upon. It's
Alabama,
it's okay.
Tennessee.
I'm not going to list
Kalkaska, Mansalona, stuff like that.
Cities, I just wasn't going to go there, man. Because it's everywhere, really, that it happens. We just don't really hear about it that often.
Right. And then when we do, it's like one of those things that's just not happening out in the open. Like people aren't talking about it.
Right.
So then you hear about it and it's like, whoa. But you think about it, like we said, there's no blood relation.
Well, what about what are they called? The Normans?
Normans?
Or whatever they're called.
The Norman McDonald's?
Yeah. Where
Mormons.
Yeah, Mormons. Where they have a lot of wives, right?
polygamy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very open to them, right?
I don't know how prominent that is anymore. Like you hear about it, but I think that got kind of the kibosh put on it a little bit. But I don't know.
It's still a big thing out in like Utah.
Yes.
I watched a documentary recently on it, about the mass murders
I thought you were gonna say the
because
mass
they went
polygamy
down,
of Utah.
well, they went down to like Mexico somewhere and built like their own city and stuff, and like it was really weird.
Is that what's it called? Mr. Beast did a video about it down by the Mexican border. It's a lawless city in America. I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, but
It's
anyways,
not Tent City, but it's something
but
like
it
that.
happens, and it's just not talked about because it's not godlike.
Not godlike.
Yeah. Because having multiple partners, isn't
I think-
godly like.
Here's my hot take. I think that if the only thing making you related is a piece of paper in between your mama and their daddy, then it should be okay.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
And so if you had a stepsister, you would totally bang her, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just had to get that on record.
Blood relation? No. I want that on record. But
Third cousin? I mean, that's almost like stepsister, third cousin.
now I'm not going to tell anybody how I know this, but second cousin is where it becomes legal.
I thought third cousin in our state. Second cousin?
Mhm.
Wow.
And that's where my statement ends.
That's where your statement ends?
Yeah.
So is that like you pleading the fifth?
I don't do fifths anymore, Justin. I'm in recovery.
I meant the Fifth Amendment.
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. So, staying sober on holidays.
Well, you're the one that brought up that whole conversation. I don't know why we got so sidetracked.
I enjoyed
first
all of
coming
it.
Into it.
I really did. I enjoyed all of it.
I bet you did.
That's the. I'm gonna make a sound clip for it. It's the Mitchell's Thought Corner. We'll hit it and be like, "Yeah, Mitchell's Thought Corner. What's on Mitchell's head today?" You're like, "No,
Wow.
we're actually not gonna do that."
No. But our boss is probably going to listen to this and make a few drops out of this.
Oh yeah, yep, that's
Yeah.
all right.
You're going to have a whole new introduction somewhere.
That's cool. That's kind of one of my goals since we're connected to all of these different publications, these different podcasts, is once there's one that's a little crazy, like how can I outdo it? How can I get a new one? And he's like, I got your ass. And he like hits me on the new one. And I'm like, ha, okay, now I got to beat that one.
Right.
Before it was, I remember when we had other people working here and it was like, oh, great. You got me again. It's like, no, man, you got to outdo yourself.
Right. You got to know where that line's at and then take it just that little bit farther.
Or go so far past the line that he'll be like, nope, can't use that one. That's why we need a censor button. You got one somewhere. But anyway. It's in your the pad, but
No.
in the spirit of the holiday, I didn't really have much of an issue with summer holidays. Just the way my family and my support system were, didn't do as much during the summer. When I was getting sober, it was 3.5 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, roughly. I think my sober date was the 3rd of January, so it'd be 3.5 years ago yesterday. The ones that got me the worst were the winter holidays. Thanksgiving,
Christmas.
New Year's.
Yeah.
That's when our family comes together the most. And like the more like not extended family, but during the summer holidays, we either do our own thing or to be like take the kid and go hang out with grandma or something like that. A lot of times we use that more for friend stuff or our own self-care. And this is how it's been.
But for me, though, honestly, in my past life, barbecues.
Yep.
That was a beer fest. Beyond beer fest.
And we would have that stuff, but it was not a big deal if you didn't come to it. So if I was just like, no, we're busy, everybody was like, okay, cool. But Christmas, Thanksgiving, if you didn't show up to Christmas or Thanksgiving, the whole family was like, well, what's wrong with you? Why can't you? And it was a big deal. So I did have trouble with those ones, though, because the first 2 years of my sobriety, I pretty much boycotted them because I knew my family had 2 different kinds of users, responsible users, and typically it was weed or alcohol. And then there's a couple of like I was what I call the toxic users, where it's a problem for us, and then we're gonna try and hide it, and we're gonna do it too much and become a problem and stuff like that. And some of those were still in the group, so I knew that it was going to be a problem for me to be around that. So I'd made the choice for the first 2 years of my sobriety to limit myself. The first year, I just completely stayed away. And the people who supported me in my family were supportive. They're like, okay, that sucks, but cool, we get it. And then the others were they said some hurtful things, and I just had to, man up and deal with it. This was my sobriety. What you say is not going to take it away.
Right.
And it was like, well, this is family, and you can't just whatever family, whatever. If I'm dead in a ditch somewhere because I can't quit drinking, then I'm never coming to a holiday again.
Right.
So I had to take that into account for me. The second year, I came for like a little bit. Like I would come in, say, if there's Christmas, bring some gifts and whatever. And just kind of when I knew drinks were going to start stacking on people or something like that, like, okay, well, it's time for me to go. Now I have enough what I've learned being a recovery coach called recovery capital, that I can go in there and no matter what happens, I can handle it, and I can be a helpful member of the festivities without using myself. But it's taken time to build that up in my life.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Now for me, like our recovery is way different because
Yeah.
you just did some outpatient, which I ain't knocking, and you remained at home. For me, I wasn't allowed to go back home, or anything like that. And honestly, my use started at such a young age, and I was such a little asshole that I didn't get invited to family functions really.
Right.
And that was on my doing. And I can't blame them for not inviting me. It wasn't their fault. It was just the fact I was a little asshole and I would speak my mind however I felt that day. And I didn't care whose feelings I trashed were hurt.
I'm not going to take over your story, but it's funny because I've become more that way since getting in recovery.
Well, I've lightened up a lot
Yeah.
compared to where I used to be at. I'm more thoughtful with what I say to people and how I present it. Because I used to just have zero filter, and I still sometimes have a zero filter. And I think a lot of that was just due to how I was raised. Being around my grandmother, she didn't have a filter at all, and she spoke what was on her mind, and I still tend to do that sometimes, and I have to be mindful of where I'm at so I don't do that behavior.
Try and remember where you're at in your story, but I like what you're saying because it's an important part of why I wanted to do this podcast with you, because a lot of our past are almost opposites.
Yeah, completely.
I had a very, I've talked a little bit about my relationship with my dad and some podcasts and stuff like that, but we weren't allowed to speak out like that. So we were suppressed into quieting ourselves. So once I started to get into my mental health journey and start to heal, there was a point where I was like, I don't even care what's coming out of my mouth. If you don't like it, it's whatever. But it's because my whole life I had been suppressed into this box where we weren't allowed to share what we were feeling.
Right.
But I like that about when we share our stories is because like you said, with me going to outpatient, getting sober that way, you were in jail and you weren't allowed to go home. Like, we have an opposite perspective, and I like how we bring that to the table.
Yeah.
So
And so, like, even after I got out of residential treatment beginning part of October of 2020, I went to sober living. My son Austin, his mom, I contacted her, told her I went to treatment, was getting out. She actually offered to bring my son up to meet me again because he started having those dad questions, like, who's my real dad, and this and that. And she brought him up for my birthday, my first sober birthday ever. I was actually able to be reunited with my son.
dude, you should crowd that shit.
So, like, it's so like,
I know that makes you uncomfortable, but like that's a big deal. That's really cool.
it's so like that really played a big role in order for me to want to keep my sobriety. And then, like, I was in sober living, first Christmas sober. A bunch of us guys, I've said this before, we sat around a kitchen table with stockings, Elmer's glue, and a bunch of different colors of glitter. Like, it almost kind of looked like it was a stripper fest, because of all the glitter. But, we actually had fun and enjoyed it.
Well, we did that at the office here for this last Christmas.
Yep, because some of us didn't have family that was going to come see us and whatnot. And I didn't, I mean, I was a ways away. I was still trying to figure out my life. My emotions were still all over the place, even though I was almost, at that time, I would have been Christmas almost a year sober. And my emotions were still out of whack. And that's why it's a big unspoken rule that, you should remain single for the first year of your sobriety because you're an emotional roller coaster. When you meet someone and there are those rare cases where you meet someone and you're like, that's who I want to be. But, you've gone to treatment several times. Like, you've tried to do this several times and you know what path you need to walk. And with me being my first time on this path, like, I didn't know to veer right, veer left, stay straight. It came to a lot of forks in the road, and I had to really sit back and pray a lot and do a lot of soul searching on which path I wanted to walk at some points, because I was confused.
I really actually like that too because for my path, I was in a relationship when I got sober, and I was in it for like my year and a half was when it finally got done. And so it ended up being like what just rethinking it all, it's like it kind of jumbles my head a little bit. But what you're saying is the stay sober for a year thing. I support that because I was in a toxic relationship throughout that time. She helped me get sober, but it was such a roller coaster up and down and just
constant battles.
Yeah, constant battles, 100%, and just messed up stuff happening in both directions because I wasn't mentally healthy to begin, and I was trying to become that way, and she wasn't either, and so we both would say things and do things, and it was bad. So I ended up choosing shortly after getting out of that relationship to stay single it was almost a year, just under, which I didn't do because I heard the whole stay single for a year thing. I just think it's bizarre that I did that. But you see in the recovery community, especially around this town, people get in recovery, they get into treatment, they get out of treatment. That's almost the first thing. They start 13 stepping it right away.
Yeah.
And then inevitably, not 100% of the time, but a lot, a relapse comes shortly after.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you were to do what you need for yourself, I mean, you're in a healing time. Like you said, your emotions were all over the place. Mine were for that first year. I would almost say first year and a half.
Almost 2 years for me.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like pushing that, I wasn't able to really work on myself as deep as I needed to until that relationship ended at a year and a half. That's when I started to really be able to focus like into last year.
Right.
You know, when I started to actually feel like I was getting to a good spot.
Because for you, there was a long time where you were told to shelter your recovery.
Yeah.
You know,
Hide it.
And hide it. And it wasn't until Corey came in to the vape shop where you kept seeing him wear all this cool recovery gear, you know, and you're like, and finally one day you guys started talking and you actually opened up to him.
Well, and it was right before that where, you know, this relationship had ended recently. She was the one that was making me hide it. She was ashamed of it, and she wanted me to be ashamed of it, and she didn't want anybody to know. And I didn't want to live my life in a lie. And she's like, well, it's not a lie if you're just hiding it. And I'm like, well, it feels like a lie. But if it feels like a lie to me, I want to be proud of the shit that I've pulled myself out of and where I've been. Mm-hmm. And she didn't like that. So I had just shared with my coworkers, like just before that, I had gotten the courage to share with my coworkers some of my past, and you know, I didn't really have friends like here and there a little bit, but because I was in that relationship and I destroyed all my other relationships before that, friendships, I didn't really. It was family, and then it was my coworkers pretty much at that point. So I was desiring to be able to live out loud, and I didn't know how.
Right.
And it's like perfect timing. Corey comes in, I get to open up to him about it, and it opens me up to this whole world of recovery that's unfolded over the last year and a quarter, you know, just over a year. And I like it so much more. I love it.
You know, I heard something last night, and it kind of discouraged me from the whole conversation because they were talking about being offered beverages, you know, like from somewhere, you know, and someone said, you know, it's just better off telling them, no, you know, I don't drink or I don't smoke, you know, just leaving it at that. And I'm like, be proud of who you are. You're a person in recovery. Take hold of that, because if those people choose not to respect you because you're in recovery, they're not real people to begin with, and you probably shouldn't be hanging around them.
Well, let's talk about stigma for a minute, because if we're gonna fight stigma, because that's the big thing here, and why people want to keep it hidden is the stigma of recovery and coming out of addiction. Are we gonna just? I feel in my heart, I feel like to fight stigma, you have to actually fight against it instead of just put a wall up.
Yeah.
And say, now I'm going to live my life out loud. No, now I'm going to openly be proud of who I am. And I can say that's what I've been able to do since being with 217 Recovery. And now there are people in the community, like going to QRT, the homeless shelters, people that are like actual people of society in our community that respect me and know my story.
Right.
You know, I don't have to hide it at all. They know that I struggled for 15, almost 16 years with alcoholism. They know that I've only been sober but I've been sober for, you know, about 3.5, you know, I gotta stop saying about 3.5 years. And so for 3.5 years, and they're proud of me for that. And I'm part of these committees. Dude, you're running off on me. No, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'll wrap what I'm trying to say up. I feel good because people see me for who I actually am, and they're not judgmental.
Right.
You know? And that's what I always wanted.
Yeah.
It's taken time. Like you have to put in the time, because you have to, like I always tell people, measurable, tangible proof. You got to have that for people to really trust you, especially people who you've broken their trust.
Right.
But it's important, and it does feel good once you get there.
Yeah, it does.
You know? So what do you do when you're at a barbecue on the 4th of July and somebody just hands you a beer?
Tell them I'm in recovery.
I'm in recovery. And they
I'm
go,
in recovery. I don't drink no more.
they're like, oh, come on, man. It's just one.
I'll dump it out.
There you go.
I'll be like, well, if you hand it to me, I'm just saying dump it out. You may as well just save your alcohol.
Yep.
At this rate, because that's all I'm going to do with it is dump it out.
Well, all right. Well, then here, have a hit of this. Pass you a joint.
I'll pass it to the next person. I ain't gonna hit it.
Yep.
You know, and honestly, if I'm in that circle that's starting to form, I'm gonna remove myself out of that circle, because we all know weed smokers will stand around in a circle to pass it around, and honestly, I'll just remove myself out of the circle. I was down hanging out with some old homies. I told you back in May, you know, and they were drinking, smoking, having a good time. And not one of them tried passing me anything. Not one of them tried handing me a solo cup. Nothing like that. You know, and they all respected that I was in recovery, and they were all proud of me because I went to high school with most of these guys.
Well, I think they did that because before this instance, you had been open and proud of your recovery with them, right?
Well,
Or they knew somehow.
Well, they just knew the addict I once was, you know, and then all of a sudden I get out of jail, I get out of sober living. I start posting all this stuff about recovery and sobriety, you know, on Facebook. So they all started seeing it, and then they've all started like following me through Facebook, you know, because like most people will tell you, you know, delete your old Facebook, just create a new one. And only pick out your family and friends that you really want on your Facebook, you know. Well, where does that instill show people that change is possible and that we can evolve as a human being from what we previously were to something bigger and better?
Yeah, I'm a Facebook virus, man. Like, I have the same Facebook I had when I first started. If you go back far enough in there, you'll see all of the just cringy, terrible posts from when I was in active use. But today it's completely different. And I add anybody I possibly can, honestly. That looks like they're real because there's so many bots on there. But I'll add everybody I can because I do post a lot for the recovery community, and I want it to spread, you know?
Yeah.
I'm the COVID recovery man. Spread it. Don't wear your mask. I want to get all up in you.
Whoa, there's another drop. But anyways, you know, it's just one of those things, you know, where we really have to be accountable for our own actions. Because like me, I don't want to lose anything that I've had, you know, that I've gained so far in recovery, because everything I've gained is more than I've ever had while using.
Well, what you said was, you know, I asked you the questions about what you would do, you know, if somebody handed you a beer. You'd say, no, I'm in recovery. You're taking responsibility for your life. And just that statement. Like, what if they pressed you? I would dump it out. So you did something to hold yourself accountable. What if they're passing around a joint? You said you would move out of that circle. Mm-hmm. Have you heard, and I've heard this before, so I'm asking you, have you heard when talking to somebody after a relapse where they're like, well, I mean, I was just there and then they handed it to me, and
that person has zero accountability for their own actions.
Right.
Zero accountability. And yeah, I don't care how well you look at it. That is zero accountability for your own actions. It's no different than being broke and poor and knowing that you could go get money simply by going robbing someone to have money. So if someone's gonna have you a drink to rob you of what you have, like you're just gonna partake. Like there's accountability, like there's a knowledge to say, you know, I have a problem. I don't recommend anybody in early recovery hanging out with people like that. You know, once you get a couple years in or whatever, where you start feeling comfortable with your accountability level and your personal growth, to be able to handle those situations and not feel ashamed. Because if you're still feeling ashamed at all, you probably shouldn't be hanging out with them, because you're going to end up using just to look like a cool guy. And that's not cool to me.
And some of the things that you've said that I'm hearing here, you're explaining people, places, and things.
Right.
The principle that we talk about all the time. You know, in especially in early recovery. And I say, you know, maybe you can talk to some of those people. Maybe you can go to some of those places and do some of the things that you did before after you have a good amount of recovery capital built up. But in early recovery, it is crucial to
Hang out with like-minded people.
Yeah. I think that's what sober living's really meant for. Like, it's turned into what it's turned into, but people don't remember that it's a stepping stone to get you back out on your feet, but it's also putting you in a home with what should be like-minded people.
Right. And I'm not saying everyone in sober living is perfect, because we all know there's bag eggs that go to sober living that's trying to do right, but yet, they just
doing what the court wants them to do.
Right. And they just can't personally get there where you're at because, let's say, they're not going to therapy. They're not taking their meds properly. Like they're still being tugged by their demons because they haven't dealt with them properly. Maybe they haven't opened up about their demons enough to really heal from their demons.
And that's what we call white knuckling it.
Right. And people do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad that people are just so self-consumed that they can't open up because they think they're bothering somebody.
Right.
And I was raised not to really open up like that.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Go rub some dirt in it and quit crying.
Be a man, get over it.
Yeah, and it's just, we have to learn how to open up at some point in time in our life in the right proper setting. You open up to someone that has that mindset of 50 years ago, you're not going to heal. You're going to shut down more and more and more. But if you actually open up to, let's say, a therapist that's actually going to give you the helpful tools to overcome these problems, you're going to overcome them, and you're going to be able to talk about it and enjoy life again.
Mm-hmm. I dig it, man.
Yeah.
So just say no. You gotta.
It's not Ronald Reagan. Oh, no, that wasn't Reagan. That was Nixon, wasn't it?
I have no idea.
Yeah, the First Lady Nixon.
I have no idea.
Yeah, her war campaign on drugs. Just say no.
Is that what it was?
With the whole DARE program that came out.
I just remember the DARE program. I didn't remember where it came from.
I remember when they brought in the case of paraphernalia to the DARE class program. I was like 5th grade. I'm like, that looks cool. Wow. They use that? Man, this is mind-blowing. So, and because that's how naive I was, because, I watched any kind of movie there was, I wasn't told not to watch this because of whatever, Oh, well, that's not suitable because there's alcohol and drug use in it. No, I watched that shit, I remember watching Pulp Fiction, and things like that growing up. And it was just a fact of life, because if we didn't become open to that type of life, like, how would you know? And I recently just got into kind of an argument with someone and my roommate, because she told me, because I said, well, my mom's going to call me in the morning because she's coming up here to pick me up. She goes, what's she going to call you? I go, I don't know. It's hard to tell. She could call me an asshole that morning, a penis wrinkle, whatever floats her boat at that morning, And she's like,
such a loving mother.
She's like, well, where's the love at in that and everything else? And like, and I really had to think about this a little bit. I'm like, you say there's no love there, but to me, my grandma would call me a penis wrinkle all the time. It was like second nature, and so to me, it's just that little bit of hazing, like I grew up being hazed, like they would in the frat communities and high school, the hazing and stuff, so it was no big deal to me.
What frat were you in?
I wasn't. I was just doing a comparison, but so I'll just give it right back to her, and it became this big thing, because she grew up in an area where she wasn't around anything like that. She didn't know what drugs were. She didn't know what alcohol really did till later. It was just a bunch of stuff that she was unaware of life. She doesn't know what it's like to be homeless. and she thinks that your parents should love you unconditionally no matter what you do in this world, and you should always be welcomed at home. Well, that's not the case. And me and you know that from addiction, you know.
Yeah.
Once you get so far into your addiction, nobody wants to be around you. You are going to be out at Tent City living homelessly, living with some homeless little mayor that tries to control the area
With a machete.
Yeah, you know, and that's real shit. That shit really happens in life, you know, and we know this. We've gone out there, we've helped clean up even our own homeless encampment. You know, we've went out there and helped cleaned it up. You know, we work with people that are unsheltered at the homeless place here when they're open from October to April. You know, we go do that, you know, so that way, but we've also been there. You know, how many times is your mom and dad wanted to give up on you?
A lot.
You know, and they're strong faith Christian family.
They
Your
wanted to
mom
look that
is.
way.
Okay. but you know what I'm saying, though? You know, I grew up, my mom didn't really push religion on us. If we wanted to learn it, we could learn it, but it wasn't pushed on us, you know?
Yeah, my parents didn't push religion on us. They shoved our heads in like they were trying to drown us in it.
Oh, and
So
the
it was
baptism pool? You just got drowned in the baptism
almost
pool?
literally. Like,
Oh.
found porn in your room. All right, time to take you back to the baptism. It was like getting waterboarded.
Damn. but you know, I didn't grow up like that. You know, I grew up very open to real life scenarios. You know, my mom always told me, well, if you don't work to pay your bills, you will live underneath a bridge. If straight up, I'm not gonna take care. I'll try to help you out if you're helping yourself. Otherwise, I'm not helping you.
Are there a lot of bridges in Baldwin?
Yeah, there is.
There are. Okay.
We have 46 trout streams in Baldwin.
Oh,
And like 156 lakes.
gotcha. Yeah. There's so many.
There is.
One thing I enjoy so much learning more about how you were brought up in the deep the deep details you start to give, because I always say, like, we're coming from opposite perspectives
Right.
when it comes to our drugs of choice, how we got sober, and our like upbringing.
Yeah.
But then you share things, and I'm like, we're opposite sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. You know, it's just the way it was. You know, I grew up from a hardworking blue collar family, you
A
know.
whole bunch of penis wrinkles.
Right. You know, it's either you're going to work hard to have what you have, or you're not going to have anything at all, you know, because we're not going to sit here and do it for you, you know, and it's just the way it was. So that got instilled at me at a young age, you know, like I can remember partying, being 16 years old, where I had my own car and was driving and stuff, and be at home partying the night before, you know, and having to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go to work, and my mom literally rolling me out of bed, say, "Take your ass to work. I'm not paying your car insurance. I'm not paying your phone bill. Take your ass to work and go make your money." Like, I'm like, "Mom, I'm still drunk. I don't care.
Yeah.
You will go to work. If you want to live in my house, better yet, you want to live in my house, you will work."
So I wasn't living at home when I was doing that, but we would party until 2 hours before we had to be up the next morning,
Yeah.
sleep for a little bit, go to work. We're 19, 20 years old. You'd just be tired as hell in the beginning of the day, and then it would kind of wear off, and then by the end of the day, you're talking with all your buddies, because we partied with all our buddies we worked with.
Right.
And then you would just start planning on how you're going to do it that night.
Yeah.
I don't understand how I survived.
I don't understand how I
The
survived neither. Dude.
Alcohol and weed back then, and just the little, like, sleep. You know, I mean, it wasn't sleep because you're wasted. I just don't. That's another reason I just shift so far to the spirituality side of everything, is because I don't think I should have survived some of the lighter things that I've been through, let alone the heavier things.
Right.
And I look back at my use, and some of the things I just said could have, some people would call that romanticizing it, but I'm actually looking back at it in awe, going, I survived that for a purpose, and I think I'm living that out now.
Yeah.
Or I believe I'm living that out now. I'm not romanticizing it or wishing I could go back to that or anything like that. I'm just looking back going, holy shit.
How did it survive that?
If there's if this is all random chaos and there's no purpose to anything, I should be dead.
Right.
So all right. Yeah, so that's what we landed on. Just say no.
Right.
President First Lady Nixon.
But another thing that's really showed up a lot in the past week of my life is taking accountability for your own actions. No matter where you're at in life, not just at the party, saying, no, I don't want a beer, I'm in recovery, to just being plain wrong in life, For instance, I watched my mom apologize to one of her good friends last weekend. I showed up at her house. She had a rent money laying on her counter. I knew what it was. I picked it up. I counted it. Actually, I walked in and said, "Oh, thanks for the free money, Mom." Yeah. But I knew it was the rent money. Yeah. I was just cracking a joke, and I counted it because I was going to send my daughter over to her landlord that lives like right next door to the house because their vehicles were home. I was going to send her over to go pay the rent. And because that's what my daughter typically does if we're down there, come around the first of the month, My daughter always goes and pays rent. And it was short. Mm. And I'm like, so I folded it back up in half, stuck it underneath her dish drainer where she had it. And she comes out of the bathroom. I'm like, I wasn't having Justine go pay rent, but it's short. She's like, there ain't no fucking way it's short. I counted that twice. Justin, I've been a waitress my whole life. I never miscount money. Mm-hmm. And straight up, my mom's rarely ever miscounted money. An occasional here or there, but never like 220s short out of her rent money, And I'm just like thinking, she goes, okay, Justin, quit playing the game and just give me my money. Like, this isn't funny. This is my rent money. This is where I live.
Right.
And she got really upset. And I'm like, Mom, I didn't touch it. And she goes, okay, I believe you. And so she called up her friend that was there and she cussed him out like uncontrollably, there's two things in this world I don't like, and liars and thieves and blah, 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 blah. And just don't even ever come back here. He pulled in because he didn't take it, and he knew deep down in his heart he didn't touch it, and he walked out, and that was that, and after he left, after they had more words and left, I looked at my mom after she calmed down. She goes, Justin, I know you didn't take it. You looked at me with that little lost boy look, like Mom, I didn't take your money, Mommy.
Don't.
And I'm just like,
don't hit me, Mommy.
Right, and I'm just like, because I didn't, Mom. Like why would I do that to you? That's not me, And after a few more minutes went by, I'm like, how about we pull out all your cash, Mom? Because my mom never has cash, really. Mm-hmm. In today's world, it's a cashless society, right?
Yeah, we're moving there.
Right, and I'm like, how about you just pull out all your cash? And she pulled it all out. She had like 40 some dollars in her wallet. And she was like, well, the ones are from the 20 I broke. The 10's from splitting a 20. And then she had a 20 left. So it was like $34 she had in there. I'm like, well, you say you pulled out this much money. Well, it's all here. All your money is right here. Mm-hmm. And she's like, what did I just do? Like, really, Justin, what did I just do? Like, why would you let me act like that? I'm like, well, I didn't know, You just picked up your phone and you flew off the handles. And the first thing she did after she realized what happened was to take that accountability and to text him and say, I'm so sorry that I miscounted my money.
Yep.
And it's just the way it was. And then someone else around here within the past week took really accountability for their actions. I had to.
Monday night?
Yeah, I think. But it was last week I had to take major accountability because I forgot to write something on the board, and it's just knowing that, if we don't take that accountability when we're wrong in doing something that we may have forgot, we're overreacted, we don't take that accountability into apologizing to make that right, you're not trying to live a good life.
Right.
That's what living life's about, is taking that accountability and admitting when you're wrong and moving forward with it, and learning from your mistakes on what not to do anymore.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out, my microphone. But all I have to say about what you said is it was very beautiful what he had to say.
Yeah.
And that if there's a gentleman that we both know whose initials are GJ, I think that he should become a licensed couples counselor. I'm not going to out any of your stories, but I think GJ should become a licensed couples counselor.
Well, I will admit, I'm still broken inside from a year ago.
Yeah.
I'm devastated, really. Like my whole life just got shattered in front of my face. And I'm working with my therapist about it. Like I talked to her about it the other night. And I'm just like, hey, this is what's going on, and I this is the way I feel. And she goes, Justin, you're gonna feel that way for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like people just don't get over that devastation at all.
She's a wise woman.
Yeah. And and it's just it just takes time, and I'm not healed yet, and it's just the way it is,
And I think the more you try to suppress it, the longer it takes. So,
Right.
like, if you're doing the therapy and you're talking with the people and you're taking accountability, it's still going to take time. That's what people don't always understand, I think. But it's going to take less time, but it still takes time.
Right.
So that's where we are.
Yeah. Like in my past relationship, like I went through and decorated our whole apartment, like to like the little sticky things on the wall, to like printing off photos, to hang them up on the wall, of just those cherished memories. And,
What kind of sticky stuff you putting on a girl's wall, Justin?
like that wall art crap, like roses and whatever it was, like in between pictures to like just decorate, like I opened up and did all that, in my previous life, I was too masculine to do that type of stuff.
Yes.
I mean, I would hang a net on the wall and hang all my fishing lures off of it to decorate something, not like hang pictures up of like my family I'm building, and cherishing these moments.
The only sticky thing I've put on a female's wall we can't talk about in the podcast.
That's inappropriate, Mitch.
It is. I think it's time to end the podcast. What I'm trying to say.
That's horrible, Mitch.
What is our final summary of? So I'm trying to say, like, I'm joking around with just say no, but you said it very well. Is if you're in a situation and you want to be around your loved ones or friends during a holiday, go to a barbecue, go to a family get together, go to a celebration, and somebody offers you something, or because it's usually pretty easy to avoid it if nobody's pushing it down your throat, unless
Right.
you're in very early recovery and still having the temptation, like the heavy temptation side.
Mm-hmm.
So what Justin said is really, really like it. That's what you do is you say no. You tell them. You don't have to tell them why. I don't like when people say that, because people are like, well, you don't have to tell them if you're not comfortable with it. I was like, I think, one, people will be more understanding if you tell them I'm in recovery.
Yeah.
And two, you're going to get a good feeling for being proud.
Yeah, and the whole thing about being in recovery, like that's so water underneath the bridge these days. Because look at all the celebrities that are in recovery coming out. Like Like, I just watched this thing the other day sitting in my office, and it was talking about Danny Trevino.
Yeah,
I think I said his last name right.
Trevino.
Yeah.
30 years or something.
Yeah, like I just watched a whole 20-minute clip of him being how he was from a little kid idolizing his uncle who was a real life gangster back in the 60s, 70s, you
Yeah.
know, and how he wanted to be just like him, you know. He had the money, the cars, the women, and he was like that's who he idolized and that's who he became like, and he was sent to San Quentin at a young age, you know, and realized that when he got out that nobody in his own community wanted to be around him because he either robbed them all, stole from them all, whatever. Like, he trashed his community and no one wanted to. So he was trying to help out and be that good Samaritan. And then, like, it just went from there, you know, like.
Well, I think the culture that he's from too, they're pretty tight knit.
Yeah.
So it hits them pretty hard when they get shunned.
Yeah.
It really does.
And like what he said when he came home from prison, he knocked on his parents' door and his dad wouldn't even look at him. Said, yeah, he could stay here, but wouldn't even look at him. And back then, you know, like, just to be like, well, yeah, you could stay here, but not give you that attention of like that welcome home hug or anything like that. Yeah, it just kept watching his TV and said, well, yeah, he could stay here, but that was it. You know, and he was like, you know, I didn't want to feel that anymore. That wasn't the person who I was trying to become.
How long do you think Justin Timberlake's been sober for now?
Is he in recovery?
Oh, he went to jail for drunk driving. So
Oh, he is not in recovery.
no, I said sober, not recovery. They're different.
I doubt he's even sober. His lawyer already got him out of that. He's gonna serve some community time.
Slap on the wrist.
Yep. he's got money to pay the lawyer. Like, I bet he'd never even seen inside of a courtroom.
I don't know.
I bet you he didn't. He's seen the magistrate and asked for his lawyer, and his lawyer has handled everything.
That disappointed me. He's been one of my celebrity idols.
I could see you being a boy band, dude.
No. Justin Timberlake, not NSYNC. His solo stuff. It's been on every lovemaking album I've made. You know, playlist since it came out.
Really?
You don't have those?
No.
You don't?
And when I did make them, it was more R&B, not JT from NSYNC.
Oh no, dude! There's some good ones in there.
No.
All right.
No, I disagree.
Let's wrap it up. So what we're saying is, if you're in that pressure, you're in that place, you want to go and see your family and your friends, be proud of your recovery. Just stand up for it. Make it something good in your life. Positivity is always going to beat out negativity. It really is, especially if you cultivate it in yourself. Just like literally, like, I'm making jokes about it, but just say no.
Yeah.
You can just say no. You're allowed to not have to do things like that. You know, if you're not breaking the law and you're not hurting somebody, you know, saying no to alcohol or drugs is perfectly fine. You're allowed to do that. And if people aren't going to respect you, remove yourself from the situation. You don't need that in your life. You need support. And
Exactly.
sometimes you don't have the support around you. Go read a book. Go say some prayers. Go meditate. You know, when you don't have anything else to do, that can save your life in those situations.
Yep.
But if you can, call your peer recovery coach, call your sponsor, call a friend, you know, do something like that. Reach out for support. Don't be the people who don't reach out and then end up at day one. There are things out there. There are places like 217 Recovery. You can just call, email, text, anytime. You know, we'll be sleeping at some point, but you know, you'll reach somebody somehow.
You know, actually, I make sure I have my ringer on at night just in case someone calls me needing someone to talk to. I make sure my phone's taken off silent every night before I go to bed.
I would sleep through it if I left my ringer on. But anyway, that's beside the point. Reach out to somebody. There are places out there that are waiting for you to say, hey, I'm having a tough time. Can you talk to me? There really is. And just the holiday season, be it summer, winter, whatever, it's no different. Just reach out to somebody.
Right.
And with that, I think we're going to wrap her up.
All right. Later.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the White Knuckling It podcast. For more details on the show and for more episodes, log on to whiteknucklingit.com.